Testing 1, 2, 3. Check 1, 2. Test 1, 2, 3. Check 1, 2. Hello. Okay, so supposedly I'm live. The question is, how do I tell you how to find this? Okay, some people are popping up over here. Angel, hey, okay. All right. Dylan Klein, cool. Michael Officer, hello. Dylan Klein. You got a YouTube notification. All right, cool. Tadeus, Dragon Ball, sweet. All right. So the thing is that there's still some people over at the other live event. Oh, thank you. I'm glad. Excellent. Janet 2A, could you type in the chat, please, how did you find that I was live? YouTube notifications. Okay. Hello, SD. It's a new user ID. Hey, everybody. I have to say, this chat is really nice. Yes, Angel. Oh, Philip, thank you. Angel, please ask your question. That's what this is all. Okay, so I'm live and some type of notification. So straw phonation. Oh, singing through the straws. That can be really, really helpful. I find it particularly helpful in terms of focusing my concept of airflow. But it's also used as a semi-occluded exercise, like it's pushing back, it's holding back some of the column of air, which allows the vocal fold to more easily adapt. Everybody, thank you so much for moving over. Awesome. The only thing I'm a little bit concerned about JC's Radiant Ray. I haven't seen her pop up. Can anyone generate a link and put it in the other chat so that JC's Radiant Ray can also find her way over here? I don't want, I don't want anyone to be left out. And this is a whole new system of streaming. I don't know if that's why my other system is, not working. I'm sure it's something to do with OBS. I use OBS as encoding software, and I'm sure it's just something I'm doing wrong. But anyways, thank you all. Ronaldo, welcome. Thank you all for joining me. My name's Jeff. This is the time every week that we set aside to discuss things musical and non-musical. So if you've got a question, this is the time to pop it in the chat. If I don't get to you immediately, just wait. I'll try and keep up with the scrolling as much as I can. But also, this video I assume will be published to YouTube once we're done. And if I don't get to your question, just put it in the comments and I'll answer it later. The Sauce Group. Jeff, how are you? I'm doing very well, thank you. Straight to the point. Does it matter if I'm standing or sitting down for my warm-ups? Is one more beneficial? That's a very good question. If you are normally seated while you're performing, I think it is probably a good idea to do a little bit of both. So do a little bit of, I will get back to you. I bet that's the share button, isn't it? Yes. Please hold while I try this extension. Sorry here. Okay. There we go. Okay. Hopefully now everyone will have that. Here's the thing. Oh, I want to close that. Okay, good. The standing position, the standing postures, we do that so that we can become more aware of how things work when they're working in an optimal fashion. If you're normally seated while you're performing, then it will be beneficial to move to a seated position and try to maintain that posture and try to see if your phonation remains consistent, you're singing. If it's inconsistent, then keep on doing the back and forth, comparing and contrasting, and that way you can eventually reconcile the two differences, so you're getting the same kind of results while you're seated as well as when you're standing. But yeah, that's the idea. I don't. It's not that it's. The main benefit to the standard posture is that you can get in a real idealized posture, a real optimal posture, and then from there you can figure out like how to move that over to your seated position. Okay, I'm gonna scroll back here. Thank you, Ronaldo. Hello, Karina. Thank you all. I'm doing very, very well. You're very welcome, ST. Subscription YouTube notification. Okay. Hello, everyone. Janine, welcome. Richard Vog. I want to say Wagner. It might be Wagner. Just it's my music history course talking. Hello. Um, Angel, I was sick. My voice was getting deep. Is that normal? Yeah, you'll get a few extra notes on the bottom end when you're sick. That's entirely normal. Just rest, hydrate, take good care of yourself. Any tips for a 13-year-old that's voice is changing? Be patient. Be very, very patient. If you want to continue to phonate, just keep it into your comfortable thyroretinoid dominant singing voice range, your chest voice range, and focus on your airflow and engagement. That that'll always be good. Like, that practice will always be helpful. Bass, baritone, and I feel like I'm not sure where to start. S- well, start in start in the middle and work your way outwards. So start in a very, very comfortable mid range of your voice, and then start to explore some of the low register. And then as all your vowels come into alignment and your airflow feels consistent and stable, then maybe explore some of the upper register too. The thing is that just just start in the most comfortable area of your voice so that you can get your vowels in alignment and get really, really good, comfortable airflow, and that will really inform how you move throughout the rest of your range. What are the techniques for singing blues and jazz? Certainly, you will depend. I mean, we all depend quite a lot on our ability to hear and like understand what we are hearing. For the jazz musician, being able to understand that immediately is quite important because if you're improvising, then understanding harmonies, chord progressions, and things like that. Certainly, you would practice it in advance of the gig, but you want to make sure that you're really, really tuned into that. And of course, having your ears open and listening to the rest of the people who are playing along with you. In terms of vocal technique, I mean, it's more of a step away from vocal technique than an optimized technique. There are certain affectations and things, and it's generally speaking, jazz and blues does not necessarily preclude one from having good vocal technique, but it is not necessarily uh, a venue in singing where it's most necessary. But the more technique that you bring to it, the more reliable your overall performances will be. Um, this to me falls into the category of knowing when to break the rules. There are times when our technique is there to really, really help facilitate something that we wish to do musically. There are other times when doing that might have the music sound a little bit too formal or too out of character. Um, but that's a nice choice to be able to have, right? I mean, if you have no technique, no reliability, and intonation is always questionable, then that's not helpful either. We have to find, in my opinion, we have to find the middle ground from the area of expertise. So we train ourselves to be able to have the kind of consistency and continuity of line and stuff like that that you might experience more readily in the classical realm, but we then make choices about how we're going to employ that technique. Evanson, it really what must I avoid to eat to avoid eating to protect my voice? It's a that's a very, very comes down to a very personal question in terms of you're gonna have to experiment, ideally not when you have a show coming up. So experiment away from performance times and find out what works for you and what doesn't. It's gonna be different for everybody. Some people swear that dairy destroys everything. I am not necessarily of that opinion. For me personally, um, really, really hot liquids are hot liquids are typically like not desirable right around the time of performance. You want room temperature water. That's your go-to. That's your go-to like fluid. Room temperature water. Aside from that, it comes down to individual differences. You know, like I generally talk about eating spicy food. Like I really like spicy food, like things. If it's really spicy, Thai or Mexican food that's really really spicy. I like those things, but way too much mucus when I'm singing or teaching. So I just I have to avoid those things around those times. Karina Chen, I'm not familiar singing jazz, but I want to sing Cry Me a River. Sounds great. David Walsh, hi. I find it easier to sing along with darker voiced tenors than lighter or more lyrical voices. Not a question of range, I think. Have you seen this in others? I'm. Whoa, where have you gone? Um, not. Not exactly. Not exactly, David. Although there are there are certain corollaries that come to mind. Um, but I'm not sure that I'm not sure that they're necessarily germane to the conversation. Um, the fact is, or I should say, in my experience, I have worked with a variety of individuals who will follow different voices or instruments based upon what they have habitually been very comfortable with. So, um, like the classic example is the singer songwriter that will come in for a lesson and they can follow along quite well with the guitar, but then shifting to the piano is challenging or not possible. They're not used to the piano as a sound source and as a reference, and that can take a lot of time to get used to. Uh, I've also seen the opposite, where people who have primarily sung along with the piano accompaniment tracks will then have a really difficult time moving over to the guitar. A lot of it is what we are habitually used to listening to and referencing. It also, to a certain extent, I think, is a reflection of our own internal concept of where the pitches are. If we're is it- but from your previous questions, I don't know that that's really the issue because I get the impression that you're a fairly experienced vocalist. Um, but I'll finish my thought because it may benefit someone, which is that if we've become accustomed to learning pieces off of references or learning from guide vocals or things like that, then our internal concept of where the next note is meant to be may not necessarily be as astute as would be ideal for singing. And so, in your case, with this lighter versus darker, that I suspect that's probably more just your ear cueing into some more of the higher partials, and those higher partials making it easier to identify precisely where the pitch is. And that's just all hypothesis, really. Let me see. Philip, do you think that making a rolling, I believe that's an R, can support our singing? How does it affect our voices? That's a semi-occluded exercise. What it does is it takes a little bit of the weight of the air column off of the vocal fold. It also serves as a really good indication of how you are using airflow. So, like if I said, sing this arpeggio with a rolling R, and you said, some exercises that would be appropriate sometimes. But generally speaking, with those exercises like the lip trill or with a rolling R, what what I as a teacher and what those exercises are meant to help us practice is continuity of airflow. So what we would prefer to hear is and if you can't do that, then that speaks quite a lot about how you are thinking of using your voice and that you're thinking about sort of picking at the notes more than keeping a continuous flow of air. The continuous flow of air is much more beneficial to keeping the vocal fold adducted or closed if you prefer, though I try to avoid that particular term, but it gets used so much. So an adducted vocal fold, and and especially above the secondo passaggio, maintaining that adduction is really, really key to keeping the sound consistent. I need to adjust this just a little bit. There we go. That's better. All right. Hey, JC's Radiant Ray. You're very welcome. I did not. This doesn't feel right either. Did not want to. There we go. I wanted to make sure that everyone over at the other chat could find their way over here. I hope this continues to work in the future. The thing is, I don't actually know how to access this live stream except from like it's like a little YouTube is doing something new with streaming. It's like a little thing in my dashboard on YouTube, and I was like, well, let's just go for it, because last week neither the scheduled event nor the other live stream beta that YouTube has. This is like the beta, whatever comes after beta, alpha, beta, gamma. Is it gamma? This is like YouTube live streaming gamma. It's kind of cool. It reminds me of Gamaron. That was like the Godzilla. Was it like it was like the flying turtle from the Godzilla movies? I think. Always loved Gamaron or Gamora. No, that's something else. Gamera. Gamera. I don't know. Anyway, I digress. So yeah, the R thing, and that really is bada 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 bada. I saw someone else asking about the lip trill as well. Those two are rather synonymous. Like they work really well together. For people that can't do the lip trill, oh, that was about tickling. I'll get to that in a second. Okay. Kimberly Durr, how often should you do warm-ups a day, and how long should we warm up per session? Thanks so much. I would say, generally speaking, bare minimum is going to be 15 to 20 minutes for an actual warm up. That's going to, you know, get you going and also have you vocalized well. That may be longer or shorter depending on where your overall vocal training is at. And particularly, too, if you have to cover a really, really wide range in the repertoire, then you're going to have to cover that wide range in your warm up as well. Now, warm ups a day. Generally, if you can warm up right before you're going to practice or perform, then that would be the thing to do. Oh, it's a rough morning. That's me inhaling my own saliva. Excuse me. Uh, if you're not going to go immediately into what you're performing or your lesson or something like that, then you may like want to do a more complete warm up when you have the time, and then kind of sort of top it up when you get close to the performance or the lesson, if you can. If you can't, then at least you've warmed up earlier in the day. You're welcome, Mrs. Webster. Andrew Curry, hello Jeff, how are you? I'm doing well. Do you think solfege is the best technique in terms of getting stronger at sight singing? It's funny you should ask that. Just at 10 a.m., I released a video on sight reading and sight singing. I had so much fun. I really enjoyed doing it. Super fun. Yes and no. Solfege, the solfege syllables are meant. They were originally made in order to help specifically with that. So yes, that's what they're for. But if you cannot read music, then it's not going to help you. So you've got to learn to read music, the written page, and also learn the system of solfege. Put those two together will transform your sight singing. I mean, you'll see patterns, you'll be able to sing them without issue. Everything comes into focus. Michael Officer, question, lip trills really tickle for me. Is there an alternative? Yeah, the rolling R is one alternative. The singing through the straw thing. Someone asked about that earlier. You can use a straw. I'm not so sure that the straw thing is quite the same equivalent, especially because I guess you can drop your jaw when you've got a straw. So that could work. Maybe try those things. I feel like there's another alternative, but it's escaping me at the moment. I'm gonna keep going, and if I remember it, I will say it. 1. Hola. I think you're saying that my videos are excellent, and I really appreciate that. Thank you so very much for watching. Thank you for joining us today. Philip Mazar, do you think that making rolling R can as well? Oh, I think I just talked about that. Heidi Banker. Hello, Heidi. Melodic Rock. Hello. Do you know anything about nutrition and voice? I'm on a raw food and my voice is now getting higher pitch. How interesting. Um, I think that you, Melodic Rock, are the first person to whom I have had any sort of conversation with. That's talked about a raw food diet and a change in intonation of their voice. I don't know why that might be. I could certainly hypothesize a little bit about it, but if it is working for you nutritionally and you're feeling really good, then I congratulate you on that. That is certainly an achievement, and I think that's wonderful. Assuming that having a higher range voice is what you want or higher pitched. Jet Gravy, Jet Gravy. That's a cool user ID. Um, Jeff, I've been using your warm up videos on a consistent basis. I like them, and thank you for it. You're very welcome. Thank you for joining us today. It's my pleasure. Charlie's Music. Hello, I have a question. I'm 17. I'm baritone. I like to sing tenor songs. I have a decent chest range, which goes G4. Could you give me advice about how to improve my high notes? Yeah, if you're doing G4 and chest voice, I would advise you to stop and learn how to do a smooth transition through the secondo passaggio. That will improve the tone quality and intonation of those notes that are above the secondo passaggio, give you more control, more choice. If you choose to belt from time to time, that's fine. If you're a baritone, and that would then put your secondo passaggio around E flat or, well, right around E flat, maybe D, maybe E. I would advise you not to go more than a major second above that, which would be an F natural, um, except perhaps on the rare occasion. Yeah, that would be my recommendation for you. Even if you did choose to belt, once you've learned to coordinate the transition of power from thyroarytenoid to cricothyroid musculature across the secondo passaggio, you'll be able to choose more in a more informed fashion about how you're going to use that musculature and how much belting you really want to do. Bible Septian. It's good to see you live. Thank you. Actually, I've seen your videos. They're so clear and educated. Thank you. But back then, I feel so hard still to do the head voice. I'm tenor and preparing for choir competition. Yeah, maybe. My sense is that this is a very busy live event. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get down there, but maybe elaborate on that a bit more. Singing across the secondo passaggio is. I don't like to dwell on this, but it does have its challenges. And the best advice I can give you is to start from the top down. So if you're wanting to be able to access your cricothyroid dominant singing voice and sing into your upper register, the first key, and this is in the videos, like it's in the how to sing high notes parts 1, 2, and 3, is to start from the top down. You. That going from the top to the bottom tends to avoid the habits of squeezing out our chest voice that we typically do um, when we go from the bottom up. That's usually how those habits form. So we go top down, can kind of circumvent them a little bit. I might also add that I am in the final stages of making the second installment of the AAA method. And that's going to be available in the very near future. And it's entirely focused on the registration event. It's entirely focused on singing over the secondo passaggio and learning to smooth out that transition. And that might be, I don't know if it'll, unfortunately, I don't know if it'll be in time for your choir competition, but it'll be around. Jet Gravy, my goal with your warm-ups is to improve the tone of my speaking voice. Do you think your warm-ups are the most effective way to do so? If not, what do you recommend? It does depend a lot on what is happening with your speaking voice. Without knowing that, what I can say about my videos is that they are by design there to help you learn to align the five cardinal vowels that we use in singing. If you do that, then you stand a much better chance of having a more even response in your singing and speaking voice, assuming that you apply those principles to how you are speaking. Even if you didn't consciously apply them, it's certainly quite likely that over time, as new habits form in your singing voice, they would carry over into your speaking voice. Philip Mazur, can you explain how tongue trills support our voice? Well, that's the semi-occluded exercise. So it takes a little bit of the weight of the air column off the vocal fold, allowing it to more easily change shape. This is particularly helpful in cases where an individual is carrying a lot of typically it's a lot of thyroarytenoid dominant tension, and that can prevent them from singing across the secondo passaggio. It is usually equally useful as well for descending, because believe it or not, you can get stuck above the secondo passaggio in a phrase, and that can be just as tricky. Angel Vasquez, thanks. Thanks to you, I got one on sight reading. Excellent. Mrs. Webster, my computer is so laggy. Pretty sure it's my fault and not yours, but I can only hear 5 words at a time. Assume nothing, Mrs. Webster. It could very easily be the system. This is a totally new way of going live on YouTube as far as I'm concerned, and I have no idea. It seems like it's working, but and you're going to restart. That's excellent. Choir competition, which is including songs with high notes. I felt that it's heavy to move from chest voice to the light head voice for tenor. Yeah, that's the whole dealio with making a smooth transition. If you're too heavy on the chest side of things as you ascend, then you get that really, really dramatic break when you make the transition, and that's what we learn to avoid. I think Philip Mazur, I think you're that I've talked about the tongue trill thing a couple times here. Bible's up. How to train the change from the chest voice to the head voice. Thanks a lot, Jeff. Yeah, I mean, check out the how to sing high notes video. That's a starting point. Oh dear. Yep. I'm gonna get a drink of water. I will be right back. Ugh. All right. Much better. Dragon Ball Prince. As a lyric tenor, my teacher has me begin my head voice at A3, a little below middle. Yeah. Is that normal? By the way, head no. A pop style voice. Uh, I would that doesn't. I don't mean to disagree with your instructor, but I'm not sure what the motivation is behind that. That practice is not consistent with male vocal technique that I am aware of. They may have their reasons. I would ask them. Um, if yeah, if they are primarily a classical music instructor and are typically more comfortable with female voices, That would actually make a bit more sense, but that is not consistent with male vocal technique. Hello, Maddie. And hi, everyone. Vice discovers Leah. Glad it's finally spring break, though I can get over this sinus infection. No to say no to sinus infections. At Maddie, Texas star 4, hot liquids and alcohol always mess me up. Me too. Yeah, not good for singing. Brian Delgado, hi there, big fan. Wonderful, thank you for joining us. Been following your videos for a while. Awesome. Jopin, hey, from Australia. Jeff, I love your warm-up videos. I use them all the time. Thank you so much. You're very welcome. I was wondering how you find out what vowel sound to use when doing covers. Can it change from the original to suit your own voice? Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it'll be a derivative of the vowels that are in the song. Your if they're like if they are in a tessitura that requires vowel modification, then we'll give some consideration to where it was for the original vocalist, if a key change is appropriate in order to have it be more appropriate to you, um, so that maybe the vowel modifications are more similar, you know? Um, yeah, yeah, that's basically it. At JC Rain Wrestling has really helped. Da 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 da. Hi, Jeff. Thanks a lot for your amazing videos. You're very welcome. Do you think that as a beginner, would be helpful to me to learn how to consciously tilt the CT muscle even at low pitches? Um, Depends on how much of a beginner you are. Uh, if you're really just getting started, I think that it would be much more advantageous to focus on the thyroarytenoid dominant singing voice and just really getting your airflow nice and stable. That is going to make it much easier to make the transition to the cricothyroid dominant singing voice. Janet 2A, this is a different format with no title. Live Q&A number 97. Yes, you're right, Janet 2A. I think it would have been. I cannot wind back as usually can. I fear it may not be published to YouTube. So can't. I hope it is. That would really. It. I hope that this gets published. No, wait. It will get published to YouTube because I did a test yesterday, and it worked with this system as well. So this will get published. You'll absolutely. I hope that the chat will be included in that, like they're including in the events as well. I guess we'll find out. I would say this too. There is one. I cannot remember his ID from the Facebook group, the sequencer group, but he always very kindly posts a transcript of all the conversation. Karina Chen, which website is good to purchase backing tracks? I would actually throw that out to the community at large. I almost never buy backing tracks. The rare occasion that I buy a backing track, it's usually on iTunes, and I'm reasonably certain that there are better places to find them. If you wanted something custom made, I get I get emails all the time from people offering to do piano accompaniments and things like that. And I'd happily put you in touch with some of those people if you wanted to explore that option. But I know a lot of people just use backing tracks that they find on YouTube as well. At Maddie, Sladja, hello, Jeff. I would like to ask you if you know how does hot tea helps when the throat is sore? Do you recommend it before performances? No, typically not. And it like the I wouldn't also recommend actually hot tea. I do a sort of ginger honey lemon brew when I'm feeling sick, and that kind of just sort of helps me get along. But once again, individual differences come into play here as well. But hot liquids before performances almost never is that appropriate. Korean Chen, mint tea helps me, and some people do like mint tea. I, for one, do not like mint tea. I mean, I like it, but it's ruinous to my voice. Alto, please. Hi. Yes, of course. Meant consciously. My throat is just annoyingly irritated. Any suggestions for cough drops or other things? Yeah, see, I am not on the cough drop train. The thing that I do, the only thing that I do for irritation and stuff like that, Maddie, of course, you already know, maintain your hydration, like stay hydrated, rest. If you can't vocalize over the secondo passaggio, stop singing. And I do this brew where I'll take ginger and I'll boil it in water and kind of, kind of stew it and then get the ginger out of there, like raw ginger, chopped up raw ginger. I'll put that in the water, boil it up, sift, strain it, and then it's really such a tiny amount, like just the smallest little bit of honey into the brew, and then like one or two drops, like just little drip of lemon juice, fresh lemon juice into it, and that I don't know if it really helps, but it certainly tastes good and it feels nice. Janet 2A at Maddie Hendricks. Hang in there, Jeff. Thank you. At Maddie. Thanks, Jeff. Andrew Curry. You're welcome. Mrs. Webster says the rolling the R totally sounds like my cat purring, but I can't roll R's. Anyone else have that problem? Yeah, that happens from time to time. It is often it is often a combination, shouldn't come as any surprise, of too much tension in the tongue and not enough airflow. So if you can become aware of how the tongue is too tense, it has to be just tense enough to stay up towards the roof of your mouth. But if it's too tense, then it won't roll. So you have to find that balance. JC's Radiant Ray is about to make some ginger tea. That would be, you know what? When you can start passing that stuff through, that will be the day. That will be something indeed. I appreciate that. Thank you. At Janet, at Maddie Hendricks, at JC's Radiant Ray, at Janet 2A, Kimberly Durr. Hey, Jeff, I wasn't sure if you knew, but about 30 minutes before you come on live, we get a notification saying your name and you're live in 30 minutes and the next notification. Oh, I did not know that. I did not know that. I don't think I can. I mean, I know it says that it sends out notifications, but I'm never really sure about that. And I get all these, like, I've heard all sorts of conflicting reports about, like, you've got to subscribe and click the bell. And like, I was like toying around with another channel that I subscribed to, and I was like clicking the bell, and I honestly, like, I was like not sure if I was going to get notifications or not. And then sometimes I'm pretty sure I'm supposed to get notifications, but I never see them. So I'm glad it worked, and I'm glad you guys found this format. Seems to be working out all right. Joseph Crescian, thank you so much for your work, Jeff. I've been through many instructors, and thank you. You're very, very welcome. Thank you for joining us today. AAA Part 2. Yes, indeed. It's been a long time coming. I'm very, very excited about it. The amount of production that went into it dwarfs. I mean, like, when I did the AAA method, it was like the most. I think it was the most videos and stuff that I had produced for a single project, and this it dwarfs it by like a factor of 5. I think it ended up. I mean, I haven't done the lecture videos yet. I've done the practical videos, the practice videos. But broken down collectively, it ends up being like 200. It ended up being like 260 videos that I recorded for the course, broken down into 5 ranges. That ends up being 52 videos per range of practice. Many of them are quite short, but what I've also done is I've created banks of MP3s that will also serve as practice exercises, and I'll be cross-referenced, so you can like watch one of the practice videos and then reference an MP3, so you don't have to keep on watching the video. You can use the MP3 to practice the skills with. But then for those of you that use digital audio workstations like Logic or Pro Tools or Cakewalk or Reaper, or probably even GarageBand, I also have MIDI track exports as well. So what you can do is you can take the MIDI tracks and bring them into your digital audio workstation. And what it'll let you do is, like, let's say you're a tenor vocalist. Well, I've done the videos so that the vast majority of tenors, like the secondo passaggio will be correct for them in the live videos where I'm playing and showing you the exercises. But everyone's voices are subtly different. With the MIDI tracks, you'll be able to make those subtle adjustments, either a half step or a whole step, to have it be just where you need it to be. And then, sally forth. But yeah, like the practice videos are done. I have to make a categorization of lecture videos. And by the way, thank you, those of you on the newsletter that filled out the survey. I just checked it yesterday. I was utterly floored by the number of people who took the time to write a response to the question. I really, really appreciate it. And I'm going to basically codify, like collate all of that information as part of the lecture series, so that I can make sure I'm answering your questions. So if you get the newsletter and you want to respond, I'm probably going to leave the survey open for a couple more days, and then I'll close it, because it's just going to get to be too many responses for me to reasonably be able to answer for. Thank you, Mrs. Webster, concurring with Joseph Cracion's comments. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Recent sequencer question asked if we could tell from a pop song she was a light lyric soprano. She said she had no training, but had been singing a long time. Can you talk about voice classification? Sure. Voice classification was originally, if I'm not mistaken, part of a German vocal pedagogical system. And it was meant to, it was created in order to help one figure out what opera roles they were most suited for. In other words, for most of us, it's largely irrelevant unless we're singing opera. That's the main focus of that. It also does assume that you are kind of perfecting your vocal technique to those ends. If you're not going to do that, then it kind of I mean, it's more important to know what our voices, like what our individual voices do and how they operate. Where is my secondo passaggio? Where is my primo passaggio? What is my lower register like, assuming that my vowels are in alignment and I have good consistent airflow? Understanding how our voices operate reveal our fach or fache. I go back and forth on the pronunciation of that. I think that there's a French word, fache, and if that's the case, I'm going to go back to fache, because saying fach, it just feels uncomfortable to me. But I have to do my due diligence on that. Anyways, and the thing, Don, too, is that how about that rain lately, by the way? I'm so bored of the rain. The thing about it, too, is I'm fond of saying whenever a microphone is involved, all bets are off. Microphones and studio tweaking can cover and otherwise equalize a lot of different things and make it much more difficult to know what a person's fache is. So yeah, I mean, I am more interested, like I find it more beneficial for all concerned parties when the fache over time is allowed to reveal itself, rather than having a cursory listen to someone's voice and saying, oh, well, you're clearly a baritone, we should train that way. I have far too many times had people in lessons or online or whatever tell me about how some previous teacher had said, oh, you're this, and just would not, never really discovered what the person's voice was. And then the person comes to me and their vowels are out of alignment. Their airflow is inconsistent. Registration event technique is most of the time minimal. Well, without those three things, there's simply little to no chance that your ability to sing into the zona de passaggio effectively is going to happen. It's inconceivable to me that you will find the most efficient point of transition, the most likely location of the secondo passaggio, when you don't have good airflow, when you don't have vowel alignment, when you don't have vowel modifications in the zona de passaggio. And so if you can't tell where the secondo passaggio is, then you're guessing about everything else too. So, yeah, I I think I guess I have to say, like, the whole notion of, like, range designations or foshes, fox, however you wanna talk about it, is something I think it's important, but I feel like we make it too important at the beginning rather than in the middle of our training. And, um and unfortunately too, I think there's a big difference between I've been singing for a long time versus I've been studying vocalizations and singing methodology for a long time. Just because you've been singing for a long time doesn't mean that you have good vowel alignment or good airflow. All too frequently, that is in fact not the case. And what you have, in fact, are a lot of unfortunate, not you specifically, Dawn, um, but let's say one has a lot of unfortunate habits that are making efficient phonation even more difficult than it would be. So that may be more than you were hoping for in that, but apparently you've struck a nerve with me. Tanner Klein. Hey, Jeff, what would you say is the male vocal type that is analogous to the female mezzo soprano? Um, Interesting question. Uh, Mezzo soprano. Okay, well, it depends on how you want to categorize that. Um, the mezzo soprano secondo passaggio is typically located around E flat 5. Um, for that, you generally have like if like let's say you displace things by an octave. Coincidentally, it's just this is purely coincidence. The male tenor voice typically has their secondo passaggio somewhere on the order of F to G above middle C. So you got a major second between F and G, right? And female sopranos will typically have their secondo passaggio around G, an octave higher. If we're going to make that correlation, then the mezzo soprano is in fact similar to the baritone because an octave below is typically the location for the baritone's secondo passaggio, typically E flat 4. Again, D4 sometimes, E4 sometimes too. I think in overall vocal characteristics, however, um, the mezzo soprano, and again, this varies a lot. There are different varieties of mezzo sopranos, and each individual have different sort of characteristics of their voice. But in terms of their vocal quality, I think of them more as like a tenor robusto. So a slightly heavier instrument than you would expect from the sort of standard tenor spinto, or certainly like the lyric tenor. Um, yeah, that's kind of where I'm going with it. It's probably something such as that. I nowadays they would probably be compared to what's called a barotenor, but the barotenor, that terminology has really come in vogue lately. It's not part of my training, and I find it to be somewhat non-committal. Um, when you have an individual whose voice the secondo passaggio seems to vacillate between E4 and F4, which that would make you like the barotenor. Um, then it behooves us to explore other aspects of our phonation in order to better understand the voice, to better classify it. If you're not getting ready for operatic roles, however, then that level of acuity of phonation is perhaps not necessary. As such, it's easier to just classify them as a barotenor and have done with it. At least you know the secondo passaggio. It's my opinion that as you continue to explore that instrument, the strong suits would begin to reveal themselves more and more and more, and then a more specific FOC would reveal itself. I hope that helps, Tanner. Galita, I find your soprano warm-ups incredibly useful. Thank you very much. Sometimes my teacher says I let a lot of air when singing. Any advice? Evaluate vocal fold deduction. If you're losing a lot of air, it's quite likely that you are getting a little bit of abduction or separation of the vocal fold. That would be my initial thought on that, but I would defer to your teacher's instruction. Maybe ask them about it, see what they have to say. Wave coming music. Is there a difference between whistle singing and falsetto? Absolutely. Also, will you ever do a video on the whistle flute register? I keep on thinking about it. I want to understand it a bit more. I want to practice it a bit more. It's in the whistle tone with whistle tones, the epiglottis is closing over the vocal fold, and it's creating an aperture that's like a whistle. And so it's a very accurately named register of the voice. Um, Falsetto is the vocal fold is still involved in phonation, though it's dampened and abducted. So there's actually a section of it that's separated, and then dampened down. But the vocal fold, the tissue in the vocal fold, is still in fact vibrating for falsetto. Jurgen, I'm doing well, Jurgen. Thank you. I hope that you are doing well too. Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you for joining us. JC's Radiant Ray. Yes, it is great to have him here. Oh, okay. Thank you, JC's Radiant Ray. Martin Lawrence. I have a habit of singing through my nose. Any advice on how to correct this? Yeah, the NG exercise is really, really good. Excuse me for that. In your case, oftentimes I use that exercise to help develop more point. In your case, I would work towards directing it back. And that would be the way to go about it. So think about directing things back, having a bit more inflation in the rear of the oral cavity, and that will help you to balance out that phonation a bit more, I should think. Joseph, I sing metal, lots of extreme styles and techniques, and I love your vids warm up every day. Wonderful, 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 wonderful. You metal folk. I used to love working with the metal folks in San Francisco. You got to take really, really good care of your instruments, because with a lot of the stuff that you're doing, you need really, really good. Not that we all don't need good engagement and airflow, but it's really, really going to help you stay healthy. Janet 2A at Maddie Hendricks. Hi, from Boston. Been using your baritone warm-ups and it helps me a lot. Wonderful. Now, question. Two things happen while I sing. I feel like coughing. Voice fails on falsetto. Tips. My first thought here is that you're actually carrying a little bit more engagement. So if you're singing with a falsetto tone production, you need to have a little bit of engagement in those thyroarytenoid muscles to create the separation, but you might be having too much, and that could be irritating the vocal fold, which is resulting in your coughing. The failing would be related to that as well. I would back away from falsetto tone production. Check out the how to sing high note videos and go through that, where you're creating the hollow sound. You 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 you. Um, and then find the middle ground between the two so you can get the most efficient phonation. I'm gonna have to go here in just a moment. I went over a little bit because I got such a late start. I got to figure this out. I apologize for that, by the way. Thank you all for sticking with me and sticking around. I do so enjoy these live chats. And I'm just gonna have to figure out how to access this particular viewer again. Last one here. For those of you that I'm not going to get to, please, if you would, this is going to get published to YouTube right after we're done. Just pop your questions, copy and paste your questions into the comments, and I'll answer them. For my English research class this semester, I'm researching all about vocal technique in pop music, a very broad topic in which there are lots of opinions. Yes, I've been researching and learning about many teachers' perspectives, but for my final paper, I am arguing that the bel canto technique can be applied to pop styles. I'd love to know your perspective, Jeff. Maybe an in-depth chat for another time. Yes, Maddie, absolutely. I would fall into the category of agreeing with you if you're looking for oppo research. Um, I wouldn't be that person, but I would happily talk to you about this. It is something. Honestly, that's what this whole channel is about, and that's what I'm trying to do. So yeah, I'd love to chat with you. Everyone, thank you so very much I really, really do so enjoy these chats. I love your questions. Thank you for taking your time and spending it with me this morning or evening. Um, and we'll see you again next week. Fingers crossed. Take really good care of your voices. Enjoy singing. Bye.